What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwell here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk podcast, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. And there's something about the underdog. Today, you see him, Boise State Bronco legend, Washington Commander superstar, number 87 in the building. I mean, the big fella, John Bates. How you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Can't complain. Grateful to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I mean, we're finishing. Season ended a week ago, but man, what a season! And I can't wait to talk about obviously your individual performance, the team's performance, and man, no one saw the Commanders doing what they did, and yet you guys shocked a lot of people, and it was one hell of a ride for you. I guess real quick, what made the Commanders so special this year?
I think this year there was just so much new and so many guys coming in from different places and guys that were here from the previous season. And so there was all these new people, but then you had great leaders in Dan Quinn and Adam Peters coming in and really trying to establish a culture in this place and really make some changes right away. And the cool part was like they never saw this team as a rebuild. They saw it as like we have the guys that can come in here now and make a difference right away. And so it was having great leaders and those guys and just a bunch of guys that wanted to win ball games and totally bought into the culture and the way that, DQ wanted to go about things. And obviously we had the success that we did, and it panned out well.
Yeah, and we had Austin Eckler on the podcast, and before the start of the season, he was raving about the quarterback, possibly, probably should be the rookie of the year, Jaden Daniels. I mean, obviously, you were catching passes from him, playing with him. I mean, what is Jaden Daniels like, obviously, and what makes him so special?
Yeah, I mean, he's the same guy that you see on TV as he is in person, like just calm, cool, collected, just any one of the other guys. Um, he'll sit there and have a conversation with you. He'll treat you just like any other person. I think he's kind of feels the same way. And so just like a super down to earth guy, super calm, cool, collected, and just a great football player, super mature, very smart player, and just a great quarterback to be around.
No, and truly, I mean, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces, but Washington is going to be a team to play against for a while. And obviously, your mentor and a guy you play alongside, Zach Ertz. What was it like being with Zach Ertz this year? And obviously, a veteran, a three-time Pro Bowler, a superstar in his own right. How did that help you, improve your game, John?
I mean, Zach's got a lot of experience. He just finished up, I think, I want to say his 12th season in the NFL. So he's obviously done it for a long time, but at a high level as well. And so it was really cool having him in the room, just being able to hear what he has to say about how he goes about, the game of football, the way he sees defense, the way he runs his routes, what he's thinking in his head when he's out there doing these things. So that was really cool for me to see, his side of things and how he thought about everything and just the professionalism. Like he's a true pros pro. Like the way he handles his body every single day, the way he goes about taking care of his business in the film room, and just like the routine of a pro and what that looks like, and sticking to it and being disciplined throughout the entire season. And so, especially in those two areas, like he gave me a lot of insight and things that I can utilize towards my game in the future, on and off the field.
Yeah, and I think truly a leader now. What this is your fourth year in the NFL, correct?
Yep.
And what did you learn about yourself? Obviously, going into your fourth year, um, you know, what did you learn about yourself as both a person and then ultimately a player as well?
Yeah. I think from like a football, I'd say in a life. I mean,
Mhm.
way too. I guess this correlates into both, but um, in previous years, I kind of had just been playing with like almost like a stress of playing not to mess up or playing so I wouldn't get in trouble by my coach or get yelled at by someone for doing something wrong this year. And I think it's just a testament of the character of, people in our building and what they stand for. But this is really like one of my first years, really probably since I was in high school, where I've gone out there and I've just played free and played to play, like not having the stress in the back of my mind of, oh, well, if I don't do this right, then so and so is gonna have something to say about it, or someone's gonna, take me off the field because of doing something wrong. But this year I really just like learned, I mean, really on and off the field, just to be free. Like, not everything's gonna be perfect. We want everything to be as perfect as possible, but really in this game and in life in general, like nothing's gonna be 100% perfect or go your way. But if you're out there and whatever you're doing, if you just give it everything you got, like you can live with making the mistakes because you're giving everything you have and you're having that freedom and none is in your mind except going out there and doing your job. And so I really just this year have learned to, be more free and not to stress as much about what the outcome will be, but just play free and put in the work that I know is necessary to what I want to accomplish, and whatever happens from there happens.
And obviously you developed as a tight end. Do you, obviously in my eyes, you're one of the top blocking tight ends. Do you consider yourself a versatile tight end, or do you consider you're a pass catching tight end, or do you consider yourself a blocking tight end?
Yeah, I would consider myself more of a versatile tight end. Um, I don't think I've necessarily had the production, the statistics to like show that um, this year, maybe like the past couple years, but like I know what I'm capable of. I know that I'm a really good blocker, and that's kind of like my niche and what I've been known for. But um, I mean, just over the last few years, like I've developed so much in the run and the pass game, and I think people don't haven't got to seen the pass game side of things just because of people in the group maybe having more opportunities than I do come game day, which is fine. But I see myself as a versatile tight end. I think I can do it all at a really high level. I think I can run routes really well. I think I can create separation versus man coverage. I think I can make big plays all over the field, and so I would definitely consider myself a versatile tight end.
I totally agree on that. I mean, we saw against the Lions and the Bears those two long 20-yard catches where you were just zooming. And speaking of the Lions, and no one, obviously Commanders fans believed in you guys, but America didn't necessarily see the Commanders beating the top seeded Lions. What was the mentality of the team going into Detroit that week? Obviously, I know you guys believed in each other as a team, but what was that all like?
Yeah, I think from the outside looking in, it's kind of like people can see it as like, oh, they have nothing to lose. Like all the pressure's on Detroit in that situation. Like number one seed, they're coming off a bye, they're playing at home. Like in our situation, like we really have just like had the underdog mentality like since the beginning. Like since everyone got together and DQ and everyone got hired and put the team put together, like no one no one ever counted us in. Like everyone had the Commanders at the bottom of the NFL. Like no one expected us to do anything in this season. So we really just had the mentality of going into the game like anybody, anytime, anywhere, and that's kind of like our motto in Washington. Like doesn't matter who. Like when you play us on Sunday, like you're to get our best shot. And when we get the opportunity for that game, especially, our like big talk was we called it a bathtub game. It was taking someone, putting them in the bathtub underneath the water, and holding them there, and just when the team thinks they have a little bit of fight left or a little bit of life left, you hold them underneath the water and you finish them. And that was our mentality going to that game. We were able to do that. So it's pretty cool perspective.
That's a vicious mindset there, John. And
Yeah.
damn. And obviously, you're going into your fifth year. You're going into free agency, correct?
Yes.
It is Washington still the destination where you want to stay and be a part of that culture?
I mean, what DQ and AP have done and the people in that building, it's an amazing place. And I've loved being here the last 3 years with, my family and stuff like that. And it's been a great place for me to grow and develop. And so I love it here. I love the connections I've made here too. But I also know too that, there's a market out there um, and other teams that probably will draw interest if I had to guess. And so, um, yeah, I would love to be here, but I mean, we'll see what shakes out.
No, I'd love to see you back in Washington. Obviously, you're such a standout there. How would it, would you, in the NFL, it's, I guess, pro sports, we just saw Luca going to LA and AD going to Dallas. I guess in the sports world, it is so unpredictable. It is a business. Um, how do you see, do you see yourself changing your game if you were in a different system?
I don't see myself like changing my game in any way. I think I think people kind of know what my game's about and what I do and how I get down with, the way of things. Um, but I mean, like, sure, there's probably new opportunities and different opportunities no matter where you go for any player, wherever they, may end up. I mean, even going into a new year, you never know. There might be new opportunities with the same team. And so, um, you know, I just go into it the same mentality that I go in anywhere or, any day, just, putting my head down and working and, really whatever, at the end of the day, whatever it takes for the team to win and succeed, like I'm all in on it.
Damn, I love that. Now, who were some of your, um, you know, growing up? You obviously, who were some of the tight ends you grew up watching that you kind of wanted to emulate and ultimately shape your game after?
Yeah. Rob Gronkowski was a big one for me, kind of in that era of when I was growing up when Patriots and him were kind of a big deal, and especially like in college when he was still playing his last 2 years. I feel like our games like were pretty similar. Like he was kind of a do it all guy. Like he would put his hand in the dirt and block and do it really well, but they would also utilize him in the pass game and play action and make plays down the field and do some different things with him. And so I feel like for me he was a big guy to watch growing up in high school and college because I felt like our games were very similar in what we did. So I really enjoyed watching him.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this: would you say he's the best tight end of all time?
I would say in terms of in terms of doing it all, like I would say yes because I think the tight end position can be a little misconstrued because it's from a position like skill position standpoint, like it's so statistical based that people forget about like the dirty work a lot, right? Like a receiver like maybe an absolute phenom like in the passing game, like Cooper Cup, for example, like triple crown winner a few years ago, like absolute stud in the pass game, but like people don't see like what he does for the run game, like in that offense, like digging out safeties and nickels and like not being afraid to like go do the dirty work. And I think there's obviously tons of great tight end like Gates and Gonzalez and Kelsey and stuff like that. But I think Gronk, when you talking about in terms of doing everything that a tight end was required to do, I think he excelled at both the best.
No, it's a tough conversation. If Kelsey gets that third or the three-peat, it's going to be up there. But I do see. I mean, And speaking of Cooper Cup, and I was just talking about the AD and Luca thing. Cooper Cup is now, the Rams have open trade options for him. So it is just crazy to me how sports can, you wind up in the next place, and like you mentioned, John, you just got to put your head down and work. Now, going to Boise State, would you mind talking about why you picked Boise State? Obviously, a phenomenal history, a great program. Obviously, we had Coach Harsin on, who's an outstanding leader. But why did you decide to go to Boise State?
Yeah, I mean, really coming out of high school, so to start at the beginning, Boise State, like I grew up like an hour away from Boise. So I was very familiar with the university, the college. My mom, she played volleyball there. Um, Grew up going to games, and so I grew up a Boise State fan. It was kind of just like in our house, always my entire life. Um, then when I got to high school, the only offer I had coming out was Oregon State, and that was the only offer I had for probably 6 months, like deep into my senior year. It was probably like November, and then I'd been in touch with like the coach who's my tight end coach there at Boise State, kind of throughout the previous years, but I never got offered. And then they had an incident happen on their team where tight end left for whatever reason, and I ended up getting offered by Boise State a week later. And so a couple weeks after that, I went on a official to Boise State, and at the time I was committed to Oregon State because it was the only team. But being there with the coaches, like the culture, the environment, the winning success, and like what the place was built on, it was cool being there and experiencing it around like the coaches and stuff. But also, I think too, like being a lifelong fan and watching like the success. Like I remember watching the first like 2007 Fiesta Bowl. I remember watching the 2010 Fiesta Bowl when Boise State won both of those. Like I remember vivid, like where I was and what I was doing watching those games, and like the type of players that they brought in to that program. It was like blue collar guys who were overlooked and had a chip on their shoulder and like had a way that they went about their business, and it translated to success. And like when I went on my official visit and just like the culmination of those two things, it was like, oh, maybe I feel bad for like switching schools, but it was like I just knew when I went there, it was like I gotta go here. Like this is a no brainer for me. It's close to where I grew up. Like school, I grew up like watching and going to games, and just like I said, the success and the culture and the winning and everything. It was just like all the stars aligned perfectly.
Yeah, and everything happens for a reason. Obviously, great history, and it was nice to see them, show who they were this year. Obviously, with Ashton and that whole squad. Have you ever? This is the Underdog Talk podcast. Did you feel like an underdog? In college and transition to the NFL. Do you still have that mentality?
Oh, for sure. Like like I said, in the high school, like I only had, I mean, which I'm very like grateful. I had two Division 1 offers, which a lot of people can't say, but like I feel like going into college, like I was kind of overlooked. I didn't really get looked at as good as I thought that I should have. Really, like my track and field success is what really got me initially offered at Oregon State. And so, from a football perspective, like I for sure thought that, yeah, maybe I was getting overlooked. Like, I don't know why these people aren't taking a shot on me. Um, Boise State, too. I mean, just coming out like it's really, I mean, we're underdogs there at Boise State all the time. Like we don't believe that, but everyone else thinks that about us. We're just like this some big underdog story and blah 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 blah. And then even in the NFL, like being a good blocker and stuff like that, it's really easy I think for people once you get in the league and you get good at something to get like pigeonholed
Mhm.
for like very specific niche in what they do. But like I know I'm more than that, and I think there's a lot of other people who probably feel the same way. Like I know I can do more. Like I've shown it, I've proven it. Just because I'm good, really good at one thing doesn't mean that I can't be really good at more than one thing. And so I definitely to this day still have like that chip on my shoulder and like the underdog because there's a lot of people, even being like in the position I'm in now, who doubt me and my skills and my abilities and stuff like that. But like at the end of the day, it's about knowing your worth and what you're about and how you get down and not letting any outside noise alter that because at the end of the day, it's like between you and your ears and everything outside of that doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think that mentality is Dakota Myers, who was on the podcast, he was a Medal of Honor recipient, said that everyone has the underdog mentality. I actually always thought that only some people have, but looking at it, everyone has it, and that is the drive, the fuel. And I mean, what are your goals for year five? Obviously, what are you going to set yourself up for in terms of success? What is that all looking like? Obviously, right now you're a free agent, but what are the goals for you in terms of receptions and all that stuff?
I mean, in terms of like personal stats, like obviously I think if every year you can just keep progressing statistically, I think that's like an amazing thing. Um, I mean, for me, it's not really as much about personal statistics and everything are great, but for me, it's more like team success. Like that's kind of the environments I've always been around. So like for me, like obviously would love to win NFC championship or like a conference championship. Always been a goal to like win a Super Bowl. Um, I would love to probably be like 10 years in the NFL at least. I think that's a really sweet point that very small percentage of people can say that they've made it to that point. Um, but I mean, for me, at the end of the day, it's like really the biggest thing is winning the Super Bowl. Like that's the ultimate prize that everyone has in mind. Once they get into this thing, I think is winning one of those. And this year obviously came up super close, but just short. And that's really where I want to get to is that point.
100%. And, one of the other big goals is getting drafted into the NFL, and you got drafted in the fourth round. What were the emotions of getting drafted into the National Football League? Obviously, I know you probably wanted, you could have been higher, you should have been, but you got drafted. What was that all like? What were the emotions of getting drafted into the league?
Surreal. Like it was just like, oh my gosh, is this real? Like dreamt about this since I was a little kid about making to the NFL, and not only am I making it, but like someone's picking me in like the draft. Like this is absolutely crazy. And coming out, I didn't. It was kind of one of those things. Like most agents have a pretty good idea of like, oh, you're gonna land probably here and here, but my agent was like, he didn't have like a solidified spot on me, so it was like I could have been anywhere from like mid late day two to undrafted. Like I literally had no clue. So it was just like the morning of day three, I remember sitting on the couch, like hugging a pillow. And I don't like get those feelings very often, but like I had just like the strongest pain in my stomach because I was actually like so nervous and anxious because I had no idea what was going to happen that day. And luckily, like 30 minutes later, I ended up getting a call and it was Washington, which is the coolest thing. But it's like when it happens, it's just like so much getting thrown at you with media and like all these new people and having to do all these things. It's just kind of like at the time, it's almost like a blur. Like it's just such a surreal thing that like that whole like hour, 2 hours after it happens, like it just goes like that, and it's almost like you don't remember very much of it. But like once the storm settles and everything calms down, it's just like wow, like this is super cool. But now it's like once you get there, it's like oh, this is great getting drafted and everything. But now I gotta go make the team. Now this that was just like getting your foot in the door. Now it's staying inside the house and making sure that no one comes and kicks you outside of it. You know what I mean?
And when your rookie year, was that Alex Smith at quarterback?
No, we were actually Ryan Fitzpatrick
Wow.
got first game, and then Taylor Heineke.
Okay. Wow. So you,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, wow.
crazy.
Commanders definitely had their carousel of quarterbacks, but I think they found the right one. Now,
Mhm.
what was your highlight of the year for you? On the Commanders this year, what was the game that stood out to you the most? Whether that be personal or team, which was the game that stood out to you?
Yeah, I could really go 3 games.
Okay.
Uh, the first one off the top of my head is the Hail Mary game,
Yes.
like, in Chicago, and we didn't even play our best football that day, but obviously just for the moment itself, like, standing on the sideline, ball goes up in the air, and the whole place is, like, dead quiet, like, it's literally, like, you can't hear anything, and then seeing it happen where, the big scrum is going on, and then you see Noah Brown pop to the back. No one's touching him around him, and you see the ball go back, and, like, everyone's on the edge of their seat. Catches it, whole place explodes, everyone's running on the field just looking for someone to hug and grab, like, absolute roller coaster of emotions and just, like, the craziest football moment that I've probably been, like, around just in terms of, like, Hail Mary walk off, like, insane.
Yeah.
Um, that's football moment, but, like, 2 of probably the coolest, like, most rewarding moments this year, when we played Atlanta at home on Sunday night football game gets flexed, winner makes it to the playoffs. Um, Huge game for us. We end up going into overtime with them. Zach Ertz catches a touchdown in overtime to win it, like, sends us to the playoffs. My first time going to the playoffs. Um, and really just that stretch of games, like, had just really come down to the last second. Like, we had 5 games in a row that literally came down to the last play of the game. But that one was cool because it's going to the playoffs for the first time, like, such a rewarding moment, like, all that hard work paying off. And then the Detroit game, I'd probably have to say too, just like in terms of execution from offense and defense and special teams all combined, like the dominant performance at their place, number 1 seed, like hostile environment going in with nothing to lose. So I know that's a lot, but those 3 games really stuck out to me for sure.
And getting a big 20-yard reception in that game doesn't hurt at all either. That's a
Yeah.
nice little play for the team, and obviously you were doing more with the blocking and all that. But really, my final question for you is: you've been in the league, you've grinded. What would your biggest tip for someone who's looking to make it into the league like you once were, whether that be from college, whether that from be high school? What would your biggest tip be, John?
Yeah, I think a big thing is um being able to really take coaching, I think is a big one. I know there's a lot of different personalities and types of coaches out there, but having the humility and the understanding that in almost every scenario, whether you have like a coach that's chill or a coach that's like a screamer, just being able to understand like that coach is never coming from a bad place. Coach is always coming from he's probably yelling at you or getting after you because he cares about you and he wants what's best for you. And so I think that's a really, especially in like today's world with, like Twitter and NIL and like the way that colleges and recruiting and stuff like that, like it's almost like a game now at that level where like the kids are in control or like want to be in control. But I think really like at the end of the day, like being coachable, being able to take, intense coaching and understand the reason for it is really important for kids in terms of just development. Because I think a lot of time, like, oh, like he's yelling at me, like, screw that guy. But really, like, if you switch your perspective on everything and look at it from like trying to get something out of it, like, really at the end of the day, it's because they care about you and they want you to get better. Um, that's one thing. Another thing I think that I've learned from my years of high school, college, NFL is never being too comfortable, and not necessarily that you need to stress about doing everything all the time, someone looking over your shoulder, but never being comfortable like doing the basic routine things, never being too comfortable to where like you're taking something for granted.
Yeah.
Like whether, whether it be time with like being around the guys, like stuff like that. And also too, just like never be too comfortable or taking anything for granted when it comes to details, your job, the way that you go about a walkthrough, like the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I really truly believe in that. Like the way you work, like should never alter based around like who you're around or the environment. Like when it's time to lock in, like it's time to lock in. And really just like I said, never being too comfortable just to like go out there and do what you need to do. Um, those are really two of the biggest, I think, things that I could offer advice on.
No, and I'm not a football player, but I took that comfortable one to heart because I think sometimes for granted we do get too comfortable in things, and getting in those uncomfortable situations is how we grow as a human being. And I love that, and I love yeah, the coaches, they might be hard on you, man, but damn, do they want the best for you. Now, my final question for you is, what is your prediction for the Super Bowl? Who do you have winning? That's
Honest, like since that last game, I haven't even thought about the
true.
Super Bowl just because that one stung a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to come down to the wire. I really do. I think the way both teams are playing right now and executing, it's pretty crazy. Both teams are playing super good ball right now. Um, I don't know though, man. I feel like Kansas City, the way that offense runs, man. Like I was in that system last year with Eric Bieniemy and the versatility they have on offense. Which I mean, respect to Philly because Philly has a ton of tremendous players on their side of the ball too. Like major respect for them and their players. But just like from what the Chiefs can do on an offensive standpoint, I think their defense is playing lights out this year, forcing a lot of turnovers, and I think from a special team standpoint too, I think that the Chiefs might have a little bit of an edge on them. So I think the Chiefs will win. I think it'll be super close and come down to the wire like it always does with the Chiefs somehow. But I think they find a way to three-peat.
Wow. I love it. Now, John, before we go, the floor is yours. Where can we find your social media? Are you working on anything during the off season? What's that all looking like?
I mean, social media, I'm not like necessarily the biggest social media guy. I don't have Twitter or anything like that. I do have Instagram. I think it's just J John Bates, I think is my handle. So that's a good place you can follow me and keep up with my life, I guess. But yeah, man, in terms of like projects or anything, I don't got lot going on. Just kind of waiting to see where I land football wise next, and go from there. But I'm excited and appreciate you for having me on again. It's been a blast talking ball and life and everything like that. So appreciate it.
And, people go follow John and send me a DM. You'll be entered in a raffle to get a custom John Bates Boise State University jersey. We're gonna give a throwback on that because that's just sick as hell,
Like,
and we've got to do that. You know how it is. And John, I mean, you're gonna kill it wherever you go. Best of luck to you in your future endeavors. And I mean, man, what a season! What an effort! And